I'm Dane, and this is Dan Explains. Have you ever gone to sit down, only to find the chair you were about to sit on wasn't where you expected it to be? Or tried to lean on something, only to find the object wasn't there? If you have, you'll know it doesn't usually work out the way it does in a comedy. Once your brain realizes the object you are about to rest on isn't there, it tries to immediately reverse your momentum to prevent you from falling down. What happens after that? Well, we usually end up throwing ourselves forward too fast, and we either pull a muscle or fall down in the other direction. This is an effect called overcorrection. It can happen when we try to compensate for something we observed has been pushed too far. Or it can also happen in the environment when there's too much of a resource, like an animal's food, causing a population boom and then bust. Well, could this happen with the climate? Could our attempts to correct the damage that we think we've done to the climate actually do more harm than good? Let me explain. Apparently, climate scientists recently noticed the obvious. Higher atmospheric CO2 levels have led to an increase in photosynthetic biomass on Earth. Basically, that means more food for plants has led to, well, more plants. This is what climate scientists like to call a negative feedback loop. Basically, increased CO2 leads to an increase of plants, which in turn suck up more CO2, moderating the increased CO2 levels. There are also positive feedback loops like melting ice and whatnot. But negative feedback loops like this are often blamed for warming predictions overshooting warming reality. While most climate scientists seem to see this as a good thing, others have tried to cast it as a bad thing, because it makes the actual destruction of the environment harder to see from space for some hand-wavy reason. Well, I've got a not-so-hand-wavy reason why this could be a bad thing. I already spilled the beans a bit in the intro, title, and thumbnail, but it's overcorrection. Let me explain a bit how it works. If you live in a climate that isn't tropical, you probably have noticed some winters that you've had a hard time keeping rodents out of your house. What usually causes this is an overly abundant food source in the summertime, where food for the rodents was unusually plentiful. This in turn leads to a lot more rodents. Once the summer ends and the food source goes away, the rodents, who are stress-free in their time of plenty, will be desperately looking for food and shelter, and your house is usually a great place to find both. After that year, if you pay attention, you'll notice for another year or two that your rodent issues are less than they were before their year of plenty. This is because the increased competition for resources caused the population to collapse when the resources started to get more scarce. So by the next year, the rodent population ends up being lower than it otherwise would have been if they hadn't had the population explosion to begin with. I do have a background in biology, however admittedly this is educated conjecture on my part. But we might have the same problem with plants. I already mentioned negative feedback loops, and one of them is plants. Lots of plants lead to colder temperatures. A few years ago, I did a video that covered this idea, where I talked about some studies that seemed to indicate that deforestation caused by early humans delayed the next glacial maximum, aka the next ice age, and may be one of the major reasons cities like Boston and Berlin aren't sitting under freshly minted glaciers today. I'll link it in the description if you're interested in watching it after this one. The increased CO2 levels could arguably cause the opposite effect. The Industrial Revolution has been a boon for plants. Data from NASA has shown the Earth is 5% greener than it was just 20 years ago, and that's accounting for the increase in deforestation during that time. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to see a sudden reversal to frigid temperatures, but we could, if we naively correct our mistakes of releasing too much carbon dioxide, or worse, listen to the people who say that we need to capture and sequester already released carbon dioxide. If the relatively small amount of tree removal early humans did prevented global cooling 10,000 years ago, what would happen if we green the earth and then just suddenly starve the trees? They're going to suck up every bit of carbon dioxide they can, just like an overpopulation of rodents gobbling up every little bit of a diminishing resource in the fall. Now, I'm not a climate scientist, but based on what I know, I don't think that would be good. I also don't think we'd get a snowball Earth either, which I'd like to point out has happened several times in Earth's history, unlike the Venus Earth so many people are worried about these days. This is because major global cooling and low CO2 levels would also lead to a massive die-off in plant life, preventing too much CO2 from being removed. However, we may get rapidly thrust into another glacial period, worse than the previous ones. If it happens fast enough, much of the biomass that caused the problem could get locked up under the ice, preventing it from rotting, and in turn preventing it from releasing its carbon dioxide back into the environment, leading to a prolonged glacial period. Although I haven't found any studies done on this yet, but if this is true, what can we do about it? Well, I'd suggest nothing. Quit trying to meddle with the Earth's climate. If we don't try to reduce carbon emissions, they will slowly decrease over time due to new technologies being developed and the carbon resources becoming more scarce over time. Unlike the food resources in my rodent analogy, which get consumed and go away, once the carbon is in the ecosystem, it doesn't come back out again. So, as the carbon emissions decrease, the carbon being released due to the natural, healthy die-off rate of plants will meet the ecosystem's demand for more carbon dioxide. Maybe then at that point we could start to contemplate the idea of carbon capture. But I have a feeling the people of that future time would find it unnecessary. In the end, the world would be warmer, but I think that's arguably better than the alternative. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please press the like button. Subscribe to my channel and ding the bell to get notified when I post new videos. Also, please support me on Patreon to get extra content and special perks. Link in the description. The more people support me, the more time I can dedicate to making videos like this one. So, until next time, have a great week.